So I'm at my mom's house, so hopefully this looks okay. It's also nighttime, so fingers crossed the lighting looks all right, but I'm just gonna do some commonplace pages, and I think I'm going to do a voiceover and maybe talk about commonplacing and my approach to that and when I started and stuff like that. But I also just wanted to show this really quick. It's only been a couple days, so this won't be very extensive, but I started using this Filofax personal size for planning at the beginning of the month. So we're still in the early days. It's also very messy and chaotic, but having a little bit of fun with it. So once I've used that for longer and have decided how I feel about it, I'll probably talk about this more. So this is my commonplace insert. It actually doesn't stay in my notebook itself. Usually it is separate in my desk drawer just because I don't use it a ton. So yeah, but I have some things I wanted to say commonplace about. Also, I added this little pocket thing. It's so nifty. I think this is I want to say maybe like Hobonichi pocket. And I saw somebody, I'll put her channel up, but she did this and I thought it was such a good idea because I can print these out and then keep them in here for whenever I'm ready for them. But today we're going to be doing a few different pages. I've been very into plants, so I have a few different type of plant topics. I kind of trailed off there, but essentially I am going to be doing a voiceover chatting about my experience commonplacing and how I got started and sort of just my overall thoughts on commonplacing in general. I am doing a few entries here, mostly about plants. These little ones in the round balls are called kokidama, and they are from Japan, and essentially it's like a ball of moss with a plant inside. I think they're very cute. Big fan. I'm going to make one soon. I will include a picture if it happens to be done by the time this video goes up. And then I think I do one about houseplant trees, different types of big houseplant-like trees. And then I do one about ping plants, which are little carnivorous plants that I think are just so cute. So feel free to listen to me chat about commonplace notebooks and my thoughts/experiences, but if you don't want to listen to that right now, then definitely feel free to put me on mute and just journal along with me. But essentially, I want to get started by talking about how I first heard about commonplace books. So, I first heard about commonplace notebooks in June 2024. I think I first saw a Megan Rhiannon video where she was using a Hobonichi cousin and commonplacing and daily journaling on the same page in that notebook. And she would kind of journal in the bottom section, and then there was a margin where I believe she wrote like thoughts or comments about whatever information she commonplaced in on that main section of the page. And at that point in time, I believe I might have been taking notes on that video, but that was my introduction into the concept of commonplacing. And I wrote down that a commonplace is a collection of ideas, knowledge, quotes, and observations. It's a notebook where you collect information for future reference and reflection. And again, that feels like a quote, but I did not write that it was a quote, so I'm not going to take credit for that. But don't do how I did and cite your sources, everybody. But essentially, my understanding of a commonplace is that it's a notebook where you collect mainly ideas from outside sources. So it could be from books, from articles, poems, speeches, other media like podcasts, movies, TV shows, music. And you collect that, and then you keep, generally, my understanding is that you keep your personal thoughts noted or separate from the information that you're commonplacing about. So when I saw that video, something about it really resonated with me and really seemed like it would be a great addition to my notebook system at the time. And at that point, I was using a standard size traveler's notebook as a planner and as a journal. So I had one notebook, little insert that was a planner, and then the second notebook was a sort of catch-all miscellaneous notes book. When I saw that video, I realized that I could kind of use this structure to make sure that I wasn't losing information in that miscellaneous notebook. Because what would happen is over time, it would get filled with journal entries, lists, you name it, it was in there. And some of it were things that I wanted to save and reflect on for future reference. And then other stuff I just didn't need to keep, but it was all together, so I didn't really have a choice. I just had to keep it all. So I thought if I had a dedicated commonplace book, I could separate out those ideas from miscellaneous things that I didn't need to have, and I could build on them over time and kind of collect that information. So I converted the last little bit of that miscellaneous notebook I was in at the time into a commonplace notebook. And the first thing I wrote about was a new album that had just come out. I also have some family lore, family stories that my grandparents were telling us in there. I have movie reviews, book reviews, and then kind of collections of information about topics that I was into at the moment. So I have some video game trees and crochet project ideas. Once I finished that notebook, I decided that I would continue on with a little dedicated traveler's notebook insert. I started that in July 2024, I believe, and I was using that same structure with the margin on the left side, the main content on the right side, and then I had a daily journaling section at the bottom. And this was 100% inspired by Megan Rhiannon. And something that I really liked about this layout is it encouraged me to return to entries. So I am not one to reread their journal entries at all. That sounds like the most mortifying thing in the world to me. And once I have kind of written it, I just want to move on and, let it pass. But as part of this exercise, when I first started my new dedicated commonplace notebook, I actually reread 5 years, I think, of journals, it was so horrifying. It was honestly torture, but I did it. I made it through. It was tough, but we persevered and we survived. And I realized that I have just been rewriting the same thing. I am dealing with the same issues, just in whatever different circumstance I happen to find myself in at that point in time. And I honestly found that a little bit disheartening. It felt like I hadn't made forward progress and forward momentum. And I kind of realized that, well, I don't need to be harsh on myself, but I realized that I didn't know that these are recurring things for me because I had never taken the time to just push through the cringe-worthy factor of rereading these journal entries and recognize the patterns and the things that I was repeating. So for me, that really emphasized the importance of actually re-engaging with what I'm writing. And because of the layout that I was using where daily journaling was in the bottom, I was sort of forced to re-engage with that on a daily basis. And because of the margin, I was actually encouraged to comment on it. And I got into this habit where I would do my daily journaling, I'd do my commonplacing or whatever for the day, and then I would reread the entries or the previous pages. And I kind of had this pact with myself that I had to comment or annotate something from a past day before I could write for the current day. And I don't know, that just became super valuable to me. I was able to kind of create this conversation with myself where I was continually reflecting, and I wasn't going to be in a situation where, I'm just writing the same thing over and over again. So that was something that really stuck out to me when I first started commonplacing. There were a few other things that I really enjoyed. First and foremost, you don't have to write about yourself. So I guess this kind of ties into the not wanting to repeat myself over and over again. But I kind of found that I ran out of things to talk about, honestly, about myself. So in commonplacing, you can write about whatever you want, like whatever you encountered throughout the day, whatever you're interested in at the moment. And so it became a way to journal and engage with the journaling notebook hobby without having to delve really deeply into self-reflection, which I do still think is a valuable tool and something that I do often. But I think, sometimes you can think about yourself too much. And I think I was definitely getting into that level of things. It was like a refreshing break to just think about something else. Something else that I really enjoyed was being able to see how my interests changed and developed over time. And also seeing how I return to things. I definitely go through phases, so it's interesting to see how long I'm interested in one thing and then kind of drift away, and then eventually I feel like I come back. And then another thing that I don't know, I unexpectedly discovered I appreciated about commonplacing is that for me, when I write something down, it really solidifies the information in my mind. When I think about how I was in school and stuff like that, this really makes sense, but I just hadn't applied this to non-academic writing, I guess. But for me, something about writing and rewriting really makes information stick and really makes me remember it. And for these topics that I am interested in, for months, I might watch YouTube videos, read articles, listen to podcasts about them, but I'm not collecting the information in any sort of uniform way. So if I have this structure where I can actually note the information down, then I'm much more likely to remember it. And even if I don't remember it, I know, oh, I wrote that down, I can go refer back to it. I don't have to reinvent the wheel and, research it all over again. I'm also not Googling the same thing 20 times. So for me, that really emphasized how writing something down cements something in my mind. And it also helps me kind of actively recall things. I was honestly sort of surprised while I was filming this. Typically, I would read off of my iPad or look something up on my phone. And I couldn't do that because I was filming with my phone, but I was a little bit worried I wouldn't be able to remember anything at all. But I actually remembered all of it, so I might have spelled some things wrong. But I remembered the information. That reminded me of active recall study techniques. So that's sort of a tangent, but it just reminded me about how I like to study and retain information and approaches of that seem to work well for me. And like I said, I really enjoyed the process of copying out information and then adding your thoughts clearly in the margins. That was a fun way to sort of re-engage with your old thoughts and pages and add new ideas and have a conversation with yourself. Also, you can make the pages really cute and pretty, and the dot stickers that everybody was using to organize everything were super cute. So, how is it going now? You might have noticed at the beginning of this video, I've only done 3 pages in this new insert. I started it a couple months ago, I would say. So I haven't made a ton of progress. In that first dedicated traveler's notebook insert that I was commonplacing in, I made pretty decent progress for a few months. And then near the end of 2024, I went on a trip and I decided to do travel journaling about the trip in my commonplace notebook, which turned out to not be a good idea at all because it took me forever to finish that. And I wasn't sure how many pages I would need for it, so I got stuck in this kind of in-between space where I was like, I can't write in here at all. And then I think I just sort of freaked out and stopped journaling altogether, I think, which is sort of silly. I should have just started a new notebook. And you know what's funny? I never actually finished that travel journaling. So tragic. Anyway, so now I am getting back into commonplacing. I'm excited to be getting back into it. I think that commonplacing helps me engage more deeply with information and the ideas that I encounter throughout the day, and that's something that is very valuable to me. if you think about the amount of information that we consume per day, it's just totally insane. I don't think that we need to deeply engage with everything. I think that would pretty much be impossible, but I have noticed that part of this is because of my work, but I get stuck in this mode of like skimming almost. I don't feel like I'm deeply engaging with anything. So I think that if I could cultivate this commonplacing practice a little bit more, then that would be a really great way for me to really focus in on the topics that I'm interested in and deeply engage with them, deeply, thoughtfully engage with them, which is something that I want to do more in life generally. So that is something that I am looking forwards to as I begin commonplacing more. Something that I have been doing is I have a quote book, which I've talked about in my other videos. This is an idea I got from a Baumkuchen article. Essentially, it's a passport traveler's notebook insert where I keep quotes. And I don't write anything about my thoughts on the quotes, it's just the quote. I really enjoy it. I haven't quite figured out what to do with it when it's done, because it does sort of seem like the type of information that would fit into a commonplace notebook, but it's such a different size notebook that I can't really store it together. And I also don't want to rewrite all 60 pages of quotes. So if you have any ideas about that, if I should try to combine them, if not, let me know. Yeah, a couple months ago, I saw a podcast called Wild Geese, and forgetting her name, I will also link it, but the topic of this podcast was about digital gardens. And this could be a whole tangent, so I'll try and keep it brief, but I was really drawn to the idea of digital gardening and how that could intersect with a commonplace notebook. There are some YouTubers like Ella Nim. They have a few videos about their obsidian and how they use that to capture information. And I'm very interested in thinking through how that could potentially work for me. But I also feel a little bit wary, like that might be biting off more than I can handle. But yeah, I think that there's potentially some very interesting little systems that you could come up with there to like capture information in your digital garden and develop it there, and then kind of write little mini essays, analog style, in your commonplace notebook. So if anyone else has explored that, let me know. Now we are in my final moments of the video where I tell you why you should have a commonplace notebook. So these are my top reasons. 1, it is intentional and it will help you slow down and process information meaningfully. We talked about this earlier, but I just feel like the amount of information we consume and are exposed to is so vast and so big. So this will give you an intentional time and an intentional practice where you sit down and, first of all, decide what it is that you care about and then capture some of that and reflect on it. Also, it lets you see what your interests are and what you care about over time, therefore letting you know yourself a little bit more. As you develop your commonplace and you have more topics and ideas captured there, you can see what your interests are over time and how they develop. You can also make connections between things that maybe you might not have seen the connections before. And it's fun. It's like making your own personalized little mini textbook or encyclopedia. And you can print out pretty pictures. You could put stickers in it. You can do whatever you want. I also think that commonplacing would be a great way for people that have trouble with the self-reflection aspect of journaling to kind of dive in a little bit. So that about covers it. Those are my thoughts on commonplace notebooks. I can do a flip through too of my other notebooks at some point if that's something that y'all would like to see. Let me know if you have a commonplace notebook, your thoughts on them. And someone should count how many times I said commonplace in this video, because I think it's gotta be crazy high. And we are just going to wrap it up here with a little flip through of the pages I did backwards, apparently. Okay, so we have the kokedamas, the indoor tree plants, propagating succulents, and then ping plants. So that is everything, guys. Thank you so much. I will see you later. Bye!